Hello everyone, it's Monday the 16th of November and this is episode 95 of the Meet the Farmers podcast. I'm your host Ben Eagle and I'm heading to Wales again for today's feature. But before we do, let's take a look at some news stories. The Agriculture Bill has now been given royal assent and there's no turning back with the new domestic policy, but with less than 8 weeks to go until the end of the transition period, industry leaders across 20 groups, including the NFU, CLA, British Poultry Council and the National Sheep Association, have raised concerns and urged the government to provide clear roadmaps regarding transition plans for agriculture. If this isn't done, they say that we risk dislocation and disruption. The National Pig Association has spoken out about its concern over the end of the transition period and the prospect of severe disruption if delays, added costs and reduced market access for UK pork exports come to fruition. Industry leaders are still awaiting clarity from the government regarding what will happen come the 1st of January. And finally, there's positive news in the beef sector due to an 8-week campaign jointly funded by the Agriculture and Horticulture Development Board, Quality Meat Scotland and Hubbard Cymru, which has resulted in a rise in beef revenue of about £10 million. Consumers were encouraged to make it with locally sourced beef to support producers after a difficult year. The campaign was a mix of TV ads, digital and social media, radio features and press partnerships. And that is the news for now. It's now time for today's feature, so let's head to Mid Wales and sheep and beef farmer Tom Jones.
It's Farmer Focus.
Today I'm heading to Mid Wales to speak to Tom Jones, who farms beef and sheep on a 500-hectare upland farm nestled in the heart of Montgomerishire. He's also a contract shepherd and shearer and a livestock focus farmer writer for Farmers Weekly. Tom, thanks so much for coming on the show. Like I said to Kate Bevan last week, I'm trying to make the podcast as optimistic as possible at the moment at quite a difficult time. So my first question is, can you give me one positive thing that has happened to you to either you or the farm this year?
We had our first little baby boy.
Oh, congratulations.
Right at the beginning of lockdown, back at the end of April, or well into lockdown. So that was probably the highlight of the year so far, really. It's dominated the year so far.
Tell me about your part of Wales for listeners who don't know it. And I don't know Montgomerishire very well either. I'm sort of south and north of you. I've been, but I don't think I've ever been to your part of the world.
No, it's pretty quiet. We're just below Lake Vyrnwy, which is a couple of miles up the road. That's the main sort of tourist attraction-y sort of place, local to us. There's not a lot about, really. A lot of walking, a lot of sheep, a lot of green hills. It's a nice part. Well, I don't think we appreciate it enough.
Yeah,
really. You get people coming out, or you talk to people in the area, and they love the views and the landscape and all that sort of stuff, and the quiet. Like, in that, we used to have the holiday cottages on the farm, and people come and couldn't get over how quiet it was about. Because I mean, on a busy day, we'll get a couple of cars go up the road past the farm, and otherwise it's pretty quiet. I don't think we appreciate it enough.
And you're the third generation on the farm?
Here. My Tide granddad bought it. Back in the 50s, late 50s, they come here. He moved up from it was still Montgomerishire, down towards the border a bit more. It was part of a small local estate, and it was all sold off at the same time.
Okay.
And then they bought here. It must have been quite a funny time, really, because all the neighbouring farms would have been, there'd have been more back then anyway, but the sort of 3-4 main farms would have all been sold at the same time.
Okay.
And then everyone would have come into the area sort of relatively new. So I'm guessing it would have been quite a strange experience, because this was 2 farms to start off with when they first come. And then next door was the same, and then the main sort of estate farm up the road, that got split into 3, I think it was. afterwards. So it probably been quite a good fun time to be starting out here. There's been a lot of young farmers sort of. I think us and the farm right next door would have been starting out for the first time.
When did you first come into the business?
It was about 7, 8 years ago, properly. I mean, I worked away from home pretty well from I left college in the early 2000s, pretty well, right up until about 8 years ago, shepherded.
Okay. Can we just talk about that time? What were you doing at during that time?
Did a little bit of everything, really. Mostly shepherding, really. I dipped in and out of a bit of, I had a bit of a bug of bit of tractor driving, but that didn't last very long. Got fed up. Soon worked out pretty quick that if you wanted to drive a tractor, you'd have to work all weekend and you'd be out half the night as well. And when all your mates are out, going out on a Friday and a Saturday night, you soon would think, oh, this isn't that good. I wasn't really that fast on it. So, a few bits of silage in seasons and stuff like that. And yeah, we had a guts full of that. It was a no-go really for me. But yeah, a lot of worked on a few from leaving college, really. A couple of local good sheep and beef farmers, really. Straight out of college, worked pretty local, just a bit higher up the valley there. And then, worked shepherded a couple of places afterwards, one after the other, pretty much lower down, lowland farms, really. Mainly sheep units, either on a dairy farm or an arable farm. And again, that was the second place, which is in Welshpool.
Let's talk a bit about your system and the business today, because you have sort of grown gradually over time. Let's start with the sheep, actually. So you have Romneys, Texels, and Perrendales. Tell me about those.
We would have been all Texel cross sort of sheep. Our dads they were Texel cross Cambridge ewes back when.
Okay.
Sort of dad was in charge, and they were very prolific. I mean, we were high scan. I think we'd have been scanning 220-ish% sort of lat sheep, but it was just all very intensive. I mean, inputs were very high, or very, very high, really. It was high input, high output, and probably high labour, really. A lot of reliant on a lot of family labour as well around Valentine's. We kept that. We never did really a complete changeover when I sort of come home. We started buying North Country Cheviot Hill ewes.
Yep.
And we expanded with them purely because we could buy the numbers of them that we wanted, really, and at the right sort of price. We'd be going up to Dingwall and Laird and places like that, and we'd be buying ewes from there. And then there was a bit of a thing of what to cross them with, and what system. And I'd been to New Zealand, and I'd had a bit of a look round, and I'd always quite liked the Romney sheep, and the same one as in New Zealand. The only real sheep I actually really, really liked that there was the Perrendale, which would have been a Romney Cheviot cross. So I thought that would be the sort of way to go. I visited quite a few good flocks of them. I know when you go to these places, you only ever see the good, producers and all that. You don't get a thing. But anyway, I thought, all right, and even just the look of the animal, I quite like the look of this, look of the sheep. So I thought, right, we'll have a go with that. So we were buying Romney tups and crossing them back into on the Cheviot ewes to produce a Perrendale type sheep. And then we'd always like to sort of be a closed flock, so we started buying a few Romney ewes to breed our own tups. And the same with the Texels, really. I'd always had a hankering to breed rams, really, or breed females. We tended to want to produce breeding stock.
Yeah.
So we started buying set up a bit of a Texel flock as well, Texel stud, around about the same time. The Romneys have sort of gone by the side a little bit now because we just focusing on like that Perrendale, that crossbred sort of sheep for the maternal side, and it was getting a bit too complicated. So we've sort of they've just been blended into the commercial flock. But so the Perrendale and the Texel side, or the Texels, have been my main sort of interest sheep wise. The smallest numbers of sheep here, but and the Perrendales would be split into sort of a stud flock producing our own replacements and crossbred tups, and then just a commercial flock producing finished lambs is where we've got to at this stage. So I think we've been crossing sort of Romney Cheviot back and two for a few years now, so we've sort of got a bit more of a stabilized sort of crossbred, and then we put a bit of Texel in the mix as well. And it's a bit of a play around sort of job, really. We some it's getting a bit Romney-ish, or we'll put a bit of Texel and vice versa. And it was tended not to worry so much about the breed now these days. Is like someone asked, like, what sort of sheep do you like? Well, it's like a white-faced sheep that gives us 2 lambs, and that's all we want, and never mind all the other. You can almost get too overcomplicate the job too much. And at the end of the day, they are just sheep, and we tend to get. Well, I went perhaps through a spell myself of getting too worked up in these small little details, whereas sometimes it's you just got to remember, like, they are just sheep and they just got to do what they do, and you put them in the right sort of system and that sort of stuff, and they will perform.
If you're sort of taking a step back and looking at the business, what would you say are your main sort of aims and where you're actually going at the moment?
A lot of what we're trying to do now is grow more grass. That's the main.
Okay.
I mean,
you're in a good part of the world for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's wet. Another thing, we don't appreciate as much because we get a lot of rain. We're very high rainfall, and our winters are a bit poor. But there's nowhere perfect in the world. But we've sort of had a bit of a look around, and I don't think there's many places I'd swap either for sort of this area. We're relatively warm. We don't have to put up with any big natural disasters. We can sort of grow grass most of the year, and we're very, very lucky. I think we don't realise how lucky we are sometimes. We don't have droughts. Where we farmed, we had a block of ground. It was in quite a dry area. It was a few hours away from home, and it was a terrible place to farm. We weren't very good farmers there. I think we weren't used to farming in dry weather. And it's only sort of in Shropshire, and it was just that much drier in the summers, and it was horrendous. We were sort of out of our comfort zone completely. Yeah. And they said, well, Christ, now we're all sort of in one block here at home. It's quite nice, really. We know it's going to rain at some point through the summer. We know we're going to get sort of half decent grass growth. But no, our main aim now is growing more grass and utilising it a bit better, and improving what we've got, really, more than looking for more or looking to grow any more. Anyway, still, it depends what sort of details you want to talk about. I mean, we still want to sort of farm extensively. We don't want to be relying on the feed rep or whatever the reps that turn up on the yard. I think our inputs have probably dropped. I don't know exactly how much it dropped in tons and stuff like that, but for the headage of stock we're now running, there'd be a vast difference, really, in what we'd have to buy in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a job to know where to focus on first. But I think, like I say, we're focusing on just the forage side of things, or the soil, I suppose, and improving the infrastructure of grazing a lot better. It's just as exciting as thing, because it's nothing nicer than seeing stock thriving in the summer. Seeing you put in seed mixes in the spring and seeing them perform in the autumn, because you got the ability to measure all these things now thanks to EID and all the different automatic weighing things and stuff like that. It's the technology side of what we do is probably improved no end.
Yeah.
To allow us to sort of see where we're making the right decisions. But there's nothing nicer, again, than going back to a paddock you've grazed 2 or 3 weeks before and seeing a nice, more grass than you'd ever grown in a lifetime. I think we were probably very poor at growing grass a few years ago. We were definitely very poor at utilising it anyway. Yeah, we're learning as we go.
I was going to say, what do you think's changed that?
A bit of mindset, really. I think we're both, myself and Dad, probably a bit more on the same page now as regards the grazing side of things and the input sort of thing. I mean, it's all very easy to go and buy a lorry load of fertilizer in the spring, and we still do as such. I mean, we're not going organic or anything like that quite yet. I think it's just getting the focus in the right places. It's little stuff like getting off the ground in the winter at the right time. We're thinking about the spring now. Like, before, when we didn't have to worry about grass growth, we wouldn't worry about lambing time, because you'd be feeding sheep, whereas now we're talking about lambing time now. I mean, the tops haven't even gone in properly yet. We're worrying about where we're going to be lambing, where they're going to be through March, beginning of April, that sort of mentality, instead of getting around to February and thinking, Christ, you better order 20 ton of feed. That's perhaps slightly different, and I think you've got to have something to focus on, and I think that's what we're focusing on at the minute. I think that's what keeps it exciting, and that keeps you going out in the morning, and I think we've turned our attention to the cattle side a little bit more, because we spent so long worrying about the sheep. That's given us a new focus as well. So yeah, no, that would be the sort of main drivers for us at the minute. And it's quite nice seeing the farm working well. You haven't just got the ranch as a place as such. Like, you have got a bit of structure, a bit of a plan there in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Let's take a sidestep and look at things on an industry level. So I mean, there's heaps of, I mean, but with the various changes, either policy wise, climate wise, all the challenges that are upcoming, what sticks out for you?
I'm not sure. We've had a bit of a battering over the last, it seemed to be over the last few months with the vegan and that sort of
Oh,
side of
okay.
things from a
Right.
red meat point of view. But I don't know if I see it. Yeah, it's a challenge, but at the same time, we've got to justify why our product is so good. What's so good about it, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, people can do what they want to do. It's the lies you hear sometimes about what goes on farms.
Yeah.
From them, that's a bit frustrating. Um, Climate wise, yeah, that's a biggie, isn't it? Really, this net zero and the emissions. I mean, that somewhat we're probably concentrating on a little bit more, or you turn your mind to a little bit more.
Okay.
Especially on the front of inputs and stuff like that. They talk about fertilizers and bought in proteins and that's that and the like. That's partly why we'd be going down the road we are, because if we want to be portraying this sort of clean and green sort of image, well, we've got to be able to farm like that, isn't it? And without going full hog organic type stuff, there's a happy medium somewhere, isn't there?
Let's talk about your shearing. How many
Yeah.
sheep? How many sheep do you reckon you shear each year?
Oh, not as many as I used to be fair. No, the last couple of years, I'd always do all of our own pretty well. The last proper years, I did shearing contracts during the summer, about the 10,000 in
Blimey.
the summers. Well, I'm still fit enough, I think. We had this argument with half when we start shearing, you sort of say, Christ, you're not a bit old for this now. But yeah, no, we still do it. I just tend to focus on our own. We rear. We sort of made the decision, perhaps well, I had a knee operation a few years back, and in the summer, and that was caused from shearing.
Okay. Right.
And we started rearing pheasants in the summer,
Oh,
so it
yeah.
was coincides with shearing, and we suddenly thought, well, yeah, I like shearing, but rearing pheasants paid better and it was easier. Do a lot of crutching of store lambs and stuff in the autumn, probably done 15,000 ish now this back end.
Okay.
But shearing wise, yeah, we spent I don't know how many years, a lot of years out all summer. It was always about the 7 to 10,000 really. I'd
Okay.
done really. That was what we peaked out at. It was a funny one, because you go shepherding as well. The only days you'd have on farm would be wet days. As soon as everything has to be done on a wet day, and then you'd be out shearing on the. And when the other lads they'd go to the pub on a wet day and spend the day on the night, you'd have 101 things to do because you'd been away shearing all week. So that was a bit of a downside on that. But yeah, it's a good skill to have, and it's a good very well paid job, and I'd advocate everyone to give it a good go. At least you can appreciate the hard work that it is. Even
Absolutely.
If you don't do it.
Let's talk about Farmers Weekly. How did you end up doing some writing for them?
I think they were a bit short. They were struggling.
Don't say that.
Yeah, I don't know. It must have been a slow news day or something like that. Perhaps I don't know. Yeah, I suppose that came about through social media or Twitter and stuff like that. I'd never really. I don't know if I was late to the party on that sort of side of things or what, but one or two people said, "Oh, you're on Twitter. A lot of farmers are on Twitter," and I said, "Have a look." And yeah, I must have been talking a bit too much on there, or spending a bit opinionated or what, and I don't know. I just had a message off Rian Price, it was then, asking if I wanted to give it a go.
Yeah.
And it stemmed from there, really. To be honest, I never been much of a writer at all. And I was never much of an academic in school, really, on that side of things. And yeah, I sat down and started to write, and it was all right. It was used to get a lot of feedback. It'd be Friday night to the job with the column coming out, and Saturday weekends you'd probably get 50% of people calling you an idiot or stuff like that, and you'd go on various forums. it's surprising really what you get, the odd letter back and things like that. It was it's good to think. It was always tended to be more. Well, perhaps it's my writing. You always tended to think farmers are very critical of someone more than positive, more than big out saying, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea." It was always like, "Christ, you're a bloody idiot, man. What are you doing?" That sort of side of things. Really, it's
only because they haven't thought of it.
Well, yeah, maybe we'll stay that. Yeah, we'll stick to that one. But great opportunity. Really, is very grateful to him. Really, on that front, it's surprising how many doors something like that opens up as well when you how you get out there. I used to think, oh, everyone used to read that. You think, oh, everyone reads the Farmers Weekly, and I think a lot of farmers you wouldn't even have a clue. Like, it's surprising how many don't read the Farmers Weekly as well. Yeah. Like, all the Farmers Guardian and that sort of stuff. So you didn't want to get too big for your boots either on that front. But no, it was a great opportunity, and it was very, very grateful to him for it.
Yeah. Obviously, so you've got a baby, and there's obviously the farm, so there's not that much extra time. But no. What other things are you into?
I can say the last few months, probably not much else really. Baby and farming.
And you can't go to the pub now, either. So
no, we had a brief spell in the middle. We got a local pub shut, which was a heartbreaking day, to be honest. That was a sad day. Still spoke about now.
Like, it's awful, isn't it?
Yeah, terrible. But so we got a little local place that had opened up purely for 90% farmers, and we that was a nice breakout on a Thursday night. Normally, you do a few drinks. You'd see each other on and off all week, but then it was always different. You'd go and have a few beers every week or so. Rugby was always the main one, same as most farming lads.
Exactly.
Really, anything. Yeah, I was sort of growing up played rugby and to it sort of reasonably recently.
We always finish the show with the same two questions. The first is, if you had a message for the public, any message at all, what would it be and why?
Yeah, hardest questions for the end. Public-wise, I suppose, we're asking for their support, and we want, and it's been nice during this last few months to seeing this sort of support for British agriculture is becoming a bit more mainstream now, isn't it? But just whatever your choices are, whether you're eating meat or vegan or whatever your choices are, to sort of perhaps source it a bit more responsibly and think what you're doing, whether it's support British farmers or we're doing our best to supply what we can at the best standards, and if they could support us in the same way, we support the country, well, it'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? If anything of this whole last 6 months has taught us, is about self-sufficiency and the strength of the nation and things like that. Well, it's probably highlighted a few things.
And finally, a message for your fellow farmers.
God, that's a tough one, isn't it? You can't tell a farmer anything. I was reading an article, a friend of mine, Jim Beery, wrote in the Farmers Guardian a few weeks back about negativity or positivity between farmers, and I sort of touched on before how much, sometimes you always think farmers always want to see happier seeing someone else fail and succeed in a way, innit? Which I think was very true in a lot of stages. And I think it's just, if we support each other and push each other on, just think what we can do, isn't it, as a industry. But if we can help each other out and a lot of proactive sort of stuff, it'll only make us stronger in a way, won't it? It's probably a very daunting industry to come into, so I think if we can encourage more than we put down, it'll only help us.
That is a good point to end on, I think. But Tom, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been really good to meet you, and sounds like you've got a bright future where you are, so good luck for everything.
I hope so. Yeah, thank you.
It's Farmer.
That's it for today, but thank you very much for listening, and thanks of course to Tom for coming on the show. Next time we'll be off to the Cambridgeshire Fens, and I'll be speaking to arable farmer Tom Clark. Until then, have a great week, and I'll see you next time.